So, let's take a look at some of these rooms and put them on the map. The first one, the Aberdeen Tunnel. This is the only underground particle physics laboratory in Hong Kong. It is situated between the two vehicular tunnel tubes behind gates 2 and 5 of the Aberdeen Tunnel on Hong Kong Island. Commissioned by the University of Hong Kong after an assessment of all existing tunnels in Hong Kong, the location of the Aberdeen Tunnel, then under construction in the valley between Mount Cameron and Mount Nicholson, was deemed to be the most suitable site for the undertaking particle physics experimentation. Funded entirely by Hong Kong University, construction work on the laboratory was completed in 1980. The laboratory was practically abandoned after Hong Kong University researchers completed their experiments, as no other experiments of similar nature made further use of the facility. However, in 2006, Hong Kong University and the Chinese University of Hong Kong petitioned the Aberdeen Tunnel Administration for permission to reuse the laboratory in order to participate in the Daya Bay reactor neutrino experiment by the Daya Bay nuclear power plant. Due to the high amount of traffic through the tunnel, researchers only have access to the laboratory 3 to 4 times a week, mostly during the late night and early morning hours. During these experiments, maintenance and cleaning operations within the tunnel have to be suspended, and all traffic is required through one tunnel tube. The Daya Bay reactor neutrino experiment is a China-based multinational particle physics project studying neutrinos. The multinational collaboration includes researchers from China, Chile, the United States, Taiwan, Russia, and the Czech Republic. The U.S. side of the project is funded by the Department of Energy's Office of High Energy Physics. The experiment consists of 8 antineutrino detectors clustered in 3 locations within 1.9 kilometers of 6 nuclear reactors. The one at Japan is called the Super Kamiokande, which is hidden 1,000 meters below Mount Kamiokeko, and it consists of a stainless steel tank filled with 50,000 tons of ultra-pure water. The tank wall has been installed with 13,000 photomultipliers which can detect light that is produced when neutrinos act upon the surface of the water. This is actually a very rare occurrence, but when it happens, it emits a charged particle which is very fast. The speedy particle creates a cone of light that is known as Cherenkov radiation. This is responsible for the blue glow below the surface of the water and is seen inside the detector, which detects incoming neutrinos. The neutrino detector has been very helpful in so many discoveries and new theories in physics, such as providing evidence that the sun is a source of neutrinos. The Baksan Neutrino Observatory is located in the Baksan River Gorge in the Caucasus Mountains in Russia. It consists of the Baksan Underground Scintillation Telescope, located 300 meters below the surface. The Gallium-Germanium Neutrino Telescope is located 2,100 meters down, as well as a number of ground facilities. The Baksan experiment on sterile transitions is currently being conducted at Baksan with aims of understanding sterile neutrinos. The laboratory itself is located in a 4,000 meter long horizontal tunnel mined specifically for this purpose. This is in contrast to most underground physics laboratories, which are placed in abandoned or still in use mines. The entrance of the tunnel is at a valley at 1,700 meters high from sea level, and the tunnel itself is located under the 4,000 meter tall mountain of Mount Androchy. A small town of Neutrino was constructed in the valley in conjunction with the construction of the laboratory to house the scientists and their families. The Confranc Underground Astroparticle Laboratory, or the LSC, is an underground scientific facility dedicated to experimental research in fundamental physics, particle physics, and astrophysics since 1985. It is an underground scientific facility located in the former railway tunnel of Somport under Monte Tobazo in Confranc. The laboratory, 850 meters deep, called Project Luna, is the main research facility under the Tobazo Mountains, standing at 1,980 meters in height. There is a tunnel connecting from Spain to France, and this is a small part of the CERN facility, which is nearby. Some physical experiments include studying the moon flux. This is when the moon is engulfed in the solar wind. So with our APM eyes, we can see this is when the moon is in the new moon phase and closest to the sun. And according to Walter Russell's work, the south would turn towards the sun and it will emit a positive charge instead of its normal negative charge. They also study radon. Radon is a radioactive gas that forms naturally when uranium, thorium, or radium, which are radioactive metals, break down in rocks, soil, and groundwater. Another is ambient photon flux. This is the number of photons per second in unit area on a surface. And neutrons, a subatomic particle that has no electrical charge. More than 50 scientists from 12 institutions from 8 different countries have participated in the LSC scientific program. These include Argentina, Armenia, France, Italy, Portugal, Russia, Spain, and the United States. Here they are studying nuclear astrophysics and hydrogen-burning experiments that produce giant red stars, asymptotic giant stars, classical nova, and IA supernovas. Part of these multiple locations takes us to Italy, where Project Luna resides. Luna studies the thermonuclear reactions which supply stars with the power to shine. In addition to energy production and its effect on stellar structure and evolution, nuclear reactions also affect the production of neutrino stars. Nuclear reactions in stars synthesize chemical elements, but all the lightest 5 elements, hydrogen to boron, are predominantly produced in stars. The China Jinping Underground Laboratory is a deep underground laboratory in the Jinping Mountains of Sichuan, China. The China Jinping Underground Laboratory, with an extremely low cosmic ray muon flux with a low reactor neutrino flux. Jinping will be able to discover the neutrinos from the CNO fusion cycles of the Sun to precisely measure the transition phase for the solar neutrinos' oscillation from the process to the matter effect, to precisely determine the geoneutrino's flux, the U-TH ratio, and to help determine the geoneutrino models. This in turn leads to low levels of radon in the atmosphere. Its depth of 6,720 meters and making it the best shielding underground laboratory in the world. The actual depth of the laboratory is 2,400 meters, yet there is horizontal access so the equipment may be brought in by truck. Although the marble through which the tunnels are dug is considered hard rock, at the great depth it presents greater geotechnical engineering challenges than the even harder igneous rock in which other laboratories are constructed. The 1,500 psi of water pressure in the rock is also inconvenient, but marble has the advantage for radiation shielding. The Jinping 2 Dam hydroelectric power project, involving excavating a number of large tunnels under the Jinping Mountain. 4 large 16.7 kilometer head race tunnels carrying water east, 2 17.5 kilometer vehicular access tunnels, and 1 water drainage tunnel. Hearing of the excavation in August 2008, physicists at Tsinghua University determined that it would be an excellent location for a deep underground laboratory and negotiated with the hydropower company to excavate laboratory space in the middle of the tunnels. Experiments currently operating in the CJPL are China Dark Matter Experiment, a germanium dark matter detector, Panda X, the particle and astrophysical Xeon detector for dark matter and neutrinoless double beta decay, a 1-ton prototype of the planned 100-ton Jinping neutrino experiment, an experiment taking advantage of CJPL's location far from nuclear reactors, and thus having the lowest flux of reactor neutrinos of any underground laboratory, to do precision measurements of solar and geoneutrinos. Also operating in the laboratory is a low background facility using a high purity germanium detector for measuring very low levels of radioactivity. This is not a physics experiment itself, but test materials intended for use in the experiments. Because silicon germanium alloys are rapidly becoming an important semiconductor material for high-speed integrated circuits. Also, Juna, the centerpiece of Juna project, is an accelerator capable of delivering hydrogen and helium beams at 50 to 800 keV. The combination of high current and the deep underground location maximizes the signal background ratio, enabling measurements at low energy where counting rates are severely suppressed by Coulomb barriers. Ideally, nuclear reactions important to astrophysics should be measured in the Gamow peak, the window of energies relevant to nucleosynthesis in stars. India-based Neutrino Observatory, or the INO, is a particle physics research project under construction to primarily study atmospheric neutrinos in a 1,200-meter deep cave under the INO peak near Theni, Tamil Nadu, India. When completed, the main magnetized iron calometer experiment will include the world's largest magnet, 4 times larger than the 12,500-ton magnet in the compact muon solenoid detector at CERN in Geneva, Switzerland. The primary goals of the ICAL are following: unambiguous and precise determination of neutrino oscillation parameters using atmospheric neutrinos, study of matter effects through electric charge identification that may lead to the determination of the unknown sign of one of the mass differences. Study of charge conjugation and charge parity violation in the leptonic sector, as well as possible charge conjugation parity time reversal violation studies. Study of Kohler events, possible identification of very high energy neutrinos and multi-muon events. KGF is located in the Kohler district of the state of Karnataka, India, are a set of defunct gold mines known for the neutrino particle experiments and observations that took place there starting in 1960. The experiments ended with the closing of the mine in 1982. The initial experiments that took place in the KGF were related to the study of cosmic ray muons. KGF was chosen because the depths of its mines allowed muons to be studied in a better environment than what was possible with magnet spectrometers operated at sea level. KGF also allowed the scientists to study the energy spectrum and angular distributions of muons, even at very high energies. Bowlby Underground Laboratory, 3,600 feet below the surface. Work being carried out at the underground laboratory includes the UK Centre for Astrobiology study of extremophile organisms that can survive in salt-rich environment. The site is also used for testing of the NASA Mars rover. In October 2017, the European Space Agency sent astronaut Matthias Maurer as part of the 5th Mine Analog Research Sortie. It is thought that the brines present in the mine may be able to support extremophiles and be like similar sites in caves on other planets. Extent testing and recording programs at the laboratory include ultra-low background material screening of germanium for development of dark matter experiments, an experiment studying the effect of low radiation environment to biological systems, astrobiology studies, space exploration technology development. Proposed experiments as of 2019 include the Watchman water Cherenkov monitoring of antineutrinos, also called AIT Watchman neutrino experiment, which would study antineutrinos originating from Hartlepool nuclear power plant. This project would aim to develop technologies to remotely monitor nuclear reactors for the purpose of nuclear non-proliferation. The Kimballton Underground Research Facility, or KERF, is situated in Giles County, only 45 minutes north of Virginia Tech's main campus. It is an active limestone mine owned by Loist, North America, in Ripplemead, Virginia. The Virginia Tech Physics Department maintains and operates 3 physics laboratories, one on the surface just outside the mine's main entrance, one close to the mine's entrance, and a deeper lab situated near the bottom of the mine at 1,450 meters. Various experiments have been hosted at KERF in the past several years, and all focus on particle physics research involving neutrinos and other subatomic particles, such as development of point contact high purity germanium detectors called Malbec, operation of a low background gamma counting facility suitable for the next generation of low background experiments, and operation of point contact detectors as part of R&D activities for the Majorana demonstrator. The Sanford Underground Research Facility, or SURF, of Sanford Lab is an underground laboratory in Lead, South Dakota, the deepest underground laboratory in the United States. It houses multiple experiments in areas such as dark matter, neutrino physics, research, biology, geology, and engineering. There are currently 28 active research projects. Sanford Lab is managed by the South Dakota Science and Technology Authority. SURF operations are funded by the U.S. Department of Energy through Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory and through a generous donation, $70 million, from Denny Sanford. The state of South Dakota also contributed nearly $70 million to the project. Active experiments include EGS Collab, the Enhanced Geothermal Systems Collab project is a collaboration of 8 national laboratories and 6 universities who are working to improve geothermal technologies. EGS conducts field experiments to better understand and model rock fracturing and other elements of geothermal energy. CASPAR, the Compact Accelerator System for Performing Astrophysical Research collaboration, uses a low-energy accelerator to better understand how elements are produced in the universe and at what rate and how much energy is produced during the process. Majorana demonstrator. The Majorana demonstrator uses 40 kilograms of pure germanium crystals enclosed in deep freeze cryostat modules to answer one of the most challenging and important questions in physics. Are neutrinos their own antiparticles? If the answer is yes, it will require rewriting the standard model of particles and interactions, our basic understanding of the physical world. GeoXTM hopes to create the world's largest, deepest underground network of fiber optic strain and temperature sensors and tilt meters to measure the movement of rock systems in underground laboratory. Transparent Earth. The project is developing a deep seismic observatory for scientific investigations, sensor technology development, and safety at the Sanford Lab. Then we come to the project Dunes, which is deep underground neutrino experiments. It is a leading-edge international experiment for neutrino science and proton decay studies. Discoveries over the past half-century have put neutrinos, the most abundant matter particles in the universe, in a spotlight for further research into several fundamental questions about the nature of matter. Dune will consist of 2 neutrino detectors placed in the world's most intense neutrino beam. One detector will record particle interactions near the source of the beam at Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory in Batavia, Illinois. A second, much larger detector will be installed more than a kilometer underground at the Sanford Underground Research Laboratory in Leeds, South Dakota, 1,300 kilometers downstream of the source. Two prototype FAR detectors are at the European Research Center, CERN. The first started taking data in September of 2018, and the second is under construction. The Long Baseline Neutrino Facility will provide the neutrino beamline and the infrastructure that will support the Dune detectors. Groundbreaking for the LBNF excavation and construction at the Sanford Lab occurred on July 21, 2017. So for the origin of matter, let's see what Walter Russell has to show us. Walter says there is much confusion concerning the many kinds of particles of matter, such as electrons, protons, photons, neutrons, and others. Particles are variously conditioned as to pressure, but there is no different kinds of particles. All are light waves wound up into particles which are doubly charged. Their position at any one point in their wave caused them to have the electric condition appropriate for that point. So let's talk a bit about some of these experiments being conducted. We will begin with the neutrinos and antineutrinos. So neutrinos are similar to electrons but carry no electrical charge. They can escape extremely dense locations. These are electrically neutral, and as proportions of the masses oscillate, the colors will change from white light to reds, greens, and blues. This creates AC electric current and will be changed by the Milky Way timing system or localized angels in the area and their rainbows. Mainstream says the main source of neutrinos is the sun, but we think it would be the star halos due to their scale on the map and grid. As they oscillate, they turn into each other, example, positives and negatives. These are visible outside of our spectrum of sight. When the neutrino becomes opposite of neutral, it is called antineutrino. So the neutrino is going to spin one way, clockwise, and the antineutrino will spin the other, anticlockwise. Scientists like to confuse this whole scenario, so let's lighten up the info a bit. The neutrinos begin neutral. They will either take a positive or negative charge and can flip back and forth between being positive and negative. This is giving us the upward clockwise spiral and the downward anticlockwise spiral of our torus angel energy. So we have this alternating current on the micro and the macro scale, creating the alternating current. This is creating vertically as well as horizontally. Let's take a look at what science says they discovered in 1956 and compare it to the Walter Russell chart pertaining to neutrino movements. So what is dark matter? Well, this takes us to the second topic of experiments. Dark matter is working outside of our spectrum, and science says it has no electromagnetic field or radiation. As we can see by this Walter Russell chart, what science says about dark matter is accurate, that it makes up 85% of components of the universe. It is not visible, but it obeys the laws. So they are detecting it by using cryogenic detectors. They see the heat signature that is produced when the particles hit atoms and cause the scattering of the nuclei. Does anyone watching this even know what kind of equipment they are using to see this 85% range? And are they available to the public? So basically, dark matter is anything outside of the human visual spectrum, as we can see here by Walter Russell's chart. The next topic will be nuclear astrophysics. This is nuclear reactions as they occur in cosmic environments and remaking of astronomical objects. These observations cover the spectrums of nuclear gamma rays, X-rays, optical and radio astronomy, as well as isotopy measurements of meteorites and their stardust, cosmic rays, and material deposits. See, if they are to steal the angel rooms and the Creator's glory, they have to be able to understand it and explain it. The light emitted by the luminaries is a direct result of the nuclear reactions that naturally occur when massive amounts of gas collapse and heat is applied. The elements on Earth are also a result of the nuclear reactions from previous and current generations of this technology. The vast majority of stars are in a perfect thermal equilibrium. The luminosity is still powered by nuclear reactions. Next, we will discuss some comparisons of these experiments and compare to more of Walter's work. An example of simulated data modeled for the CMS particle detector on the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. Here, following a collision of two protons, a Higgs boson is produced, which decays into two jets of hadrons and two electrons. This is an image Sandra and I animated to show the compression, fusion, and expansion parts of the process, while the light particles are demonstrated with the particles accelerating outward from the fusion point. And we can compare this to Walter's work, where he describes what they say they discovered. His work, The Universal One, was put out in 1926. Russell also developed and tested counter-wound sets of coils, each in the shape of overlapping cones. The device was based on the power multiplication principle discussed in many of his books. According to a memo dated in 1961, the device worked because of the false concept of gravity, which assumes it to be a force of attraction which pulls inward from within, instead of a cyclic force which controls the expansion of cold into heat and the expansion of heat into cold. Nature's first principle of power production and the construction of matter is to produce heat from the cold of space. The heat thus generated radiates back into the cold to complete the wave cycle, which automatically repeats itself in this ageless universe of infinite continuity. The concept behind Russell coils. The inner coils are wound from the ends towards the center in opposite directions. The outer coils are wound from the center towards the ends in opposite directions. In addition to transmutation, Russell's work also involved the assembly of a device to produce energy from the background flux of fields. This is what we are seeing with the neutrino movements and particle collisions. So I want to say that finding real pictures of some of these and the labs themselves was next to impossible. As I searched the websites to obtain information and maybe some photos, I noticed my computer being scanned by several repeat IP addresses. Now, had I not been blocking these places, it's hard telling what they would be looking for in my computer. However, I'm sure my IP is blacklisted by now. It makes you wonder why the United States defense system wants to pinpoint my location just for simply wanting to learn about science experiments going on in the world. Each of these labs, as we saw, fell onto very telling locations. On the star halos, on the grid, on angel points. What we can see by placing these underground labs on the map and grid is these are angel rooms that they are studying and learning the functions and cycles. They are planting seeds into the public mind that they built this technology that is producing these effects when in fact the angel technology is already there doing it. Some of the man-made areas that we viewed are their attempt to recreate this glory. This electro-alchemagnetic world we live in was designed by the greatest designer of all with the perfection to allow us to live in our realm where everything we need is provided. The few that steal the glory are the same few that steal everything in the realm and say that we have to slave to be able to live. Open your eyes, people, and see the world with APM eyes, and that we, the many, can begin to free ourselves from the man-made matrix of reality that is being faked by the few.